Good afternoon, everybody, from a little bit of a grey and miserable Madrid, to be honest, isn't it today, George?
It is a little bit, yes. Thank you all very much for coming. My name's George Heritage. I work for Cambridge Assessment in the Madrid office. And with me today is...
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Jeffries, and I also work in Madrid with George. And we are here today with a very special session, in our opinion, and I'm sure you'll all agree. We have some special guests towards the end, but George and I are going to kick things off to begin with to tell you about this very special program of learning and assessment, which we ran here in Spain this year alongside the Fundación Amancio Ortega. So we're going to give you a quick overview and go into some specifics before, as I said, we welcome some special guests. So Cambridge Ignite kicked off in January of this year and finished up in July. And we ran this program for 600 learners of English here in Spain, who normally, in a normal situation, would have been going on scholarships to the US and Canada. But of course, with everything that has been happening over the past 12, 18 months globally, that didn't happen. So Cambridge teamed up with the Fundación to create this very special learning program. George, I'll hand over to you.
So, yes, 600 students, about 60 separate classes were involved. And as part of the planning, we did send out quite an extensive survey to all of our prospective students. One of the most interesting, perhaps, questions was this about their motivation. So what motivated our students to improve their English level? We had a nice Cambridge multiple choice question, but more interestingly were many of the answers we got from our candidates who selected other. So should we have a look at some of those, Rachel?
Yeah, as George said, this was really, really one of the key parts of this program as we started in the planning stages. We wanted to identify quite quickly what the needs and interests were of these students that we would be working with. We knew that ultimately they wanted to improve their English language level, but we wanted to go beyond that and make sure that the program that we created, especially for them, was motivating, stimulating, and relevant for them. And the feedback we got back from the start and throughout from the students was fantastic. And as you can see here, all of these things fed into the program objectives that we identified for the course. So first up, we wanted our students to feel motivated and enthusiastic taking part in the program.
We wanted to offer as much support as possible in acquiring and developing additional skills, which we hope would impact on their further education experience and employment prospects, obviously beyond English language, but at the heart of it all, of course, helping our students progress in their language level and in their confidence when using English.
Exactly.
Oh, you're disappearing, Rachel. Should we turn our cameras off?
I'm going to run you through now very quick. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's better. I think we'll probably stay with those off.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to run you through now how we met these objectives throughout the program. So first up, the content. Of course, we wanted the content to ignite that motivation to learn. George?
Exactly, and we all know how important motivation and engagement is, especially with teenage learners. So we really did do our best to ensure that all of the content that we were working with was, relevant to our students, to their lives. There was a lot of wraparound digital course materials for our students to access both in and outside of class, and plenty of opportunities for extra practice built into the course itself.
Exactly. So a little challenge for you all now. We're going to show you these 4 images and thinking about those live competencies that we really threaded in throughout this program. Can you tell us what competency or which competency you think these images represent? Let's check out the chat box.
So yes, I mean, underlying the whole course obviously was the English, and as we said, enthusiasm, motivation, helping to build our students' confidence, but we also tried to build everything around these key life competencies, which you may have heard about yesterday or today. Excellent visionary collaboration. Ooh, endurance, nice, but I think collaboration was what we were going for here. So a key part of much of the course was a series of collaborative projects. These projects were the same for each of the 60 classes. I think they were dealt with in a combination of ways, either groups of 4 or 5 or down to 2 or 3 students. They were bespoke projects created for this course, and as I said, they were designed bearing these skills in mind, so hopefully with opportunities for our students to develop their creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, communication skills. So back to another quiz, I think. For those of you who are concentrating, which competency do you think these images represent? Ideas in the chat box? I may have mentioned it already. And it's not collaboration. It's very pink, this slide, isn't it, Rachel?
It is, isn't it? I like the colour scheme of this.
I like the colour scheme. Ooh, focus. Miriam, straight in there, creativity. Exactly. As much room as possible within the projects for creativity and for students to bring their own views to the subject or the topic in question. Each of the projects was quite structured because we wanted, doing a course like this across 60 classes, we did want to ensure that all of our groups and all of our classes were sort of, singing from the same hymn sheet, or at least that they're from a level playing field, at least. So they were very staged. There was plenty of support in the different stages of the project, but at the same time, enough room for that creativity, as I was saying. This was the penultimate project, I think, called Learning to Learn, which was my favorite. And our students were first given the support with the preparation. They were asked to discuss and consider the purpose and the value of education. They were given some different more radical, shall we say, or innovative education systems to research on their own, types of schools around the world. And then in their groups, they prepared a 15-minute proposal for their Ministry of Education. So our students were preparing a proposal for the Spanish Ministry of Education, outlining what they thought was good with the current system, what they thought could be improved, using examples that we had given them. And this really, I think, it was a really nice culmination of the various skills we've been working on up until now, especially critical thinking, I think. What do you think, Rachel?
Absolutely, yeah. And I agree with you, George. I think for us, I think this was our favorite project, but I know a lot of the students really particularly enjoyed this project as well. Kind of taking a look at the research of educational systems around the world and thinking about, what is it that they would like to see a change in? It's very easy, I think, just in general for us all to kind of complain about the things that we don't like, but we really kind of took on a positive approach with this project and kind of said, what are the great things? What are the values of education? And how could we even, how could we improve that? So back to a little task for you. I think these are getting a little bit more, a little trickier, right, George?
A little trickier, maybe. And I may have mentioned this one, but which competency does this image represent?
There's no right or wrong answer here as well.
No right or wrong answer.
Yeah,
problem solving. Very nice, Paula. Very nice.
Lots of different
decision making.
Wonderful.
Very nice. I think they're both threads within this life competency. Goals.
Love it. Decision making. This was a trickier one. We were going here for critical thinking.
But everything, all of the answers in the chat box, I think, all feed into critical thinking.
Absolutely.
So again, here's stage 2, which I think was the development stage, asking critical questions about the topic matter. And I think what Rachel was saying, it's very easy to sort of complain about something and say we want this. From one side, we were supporting our students to research and build up an argument. But then I did also see other examples of, this is what we want, and working backwards from that. Do you not think, Rachel?
Absolutely.
Sort of, this is where we want to get to, how do we get there, which I think takes a lot of critical thinking and really thinking through the processes and the stages you need to move through to get to that change or to affect that change. Exactly, Paola. Evaluating different perspectives, looking at the system that our students found themselves in, comparing it to other systems on the other side of the world, looking at things that they had in common, things that were different, and things that maybe could be borrowed and shared between them.
Definitely. And as George said, with 60 different classes and 5 projects in total, you imagine, I can't do maths that quickly, but there's a lot of projects to present. We would have loved to have presented them all to bigger audiences, because these projects the students worked so hard on, and the results were absolutely fantastic. So just for me and you, right, George, seeing what the students from our class came up with was really, really rewarding.
It was incredibly rewarding, and especially this one in particular, that penultimate project I really enjoyed. Obviously, throughout all of this and throughout the whole course, there was a big focus on developing our students' communication skills. All of the classes were carried out on Zoom, with extensive use of breakout rooms to model different types of interaction, etc. I know that the class that Rachel and I looked after, in particular, the first presentation was interesting and a little bit nervous, should we say, Rachel? But by the end of the 6 months, they were seasoned presenters. I think that their confidence increased dramatically, and I mean, we only had, what, 2 classes a week? Is it 2 classes a week, Rachel?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
2 classes a week.
So a lot of speaking focus. But again, we were trying to replicate different scenarios and model different types of interaction as far as possible. And I think that, again, spilt over into helping improve their confidence.
Yeah, and we also gave students access to optional conversation classes, so making sure that they had even more opportunities to use their English with other students, other teachers on a Friday afternoon. And then moving into learning to learn, which was identified as a really key area that we wanted to explore as well. From our side, from the Fundación, thinking about those skills that these students will need as they move up into university, into their careers. And we provided students with various ways to do this, of course, integrated into their lessons, into the project work, but also through platforms like Write and Improve.
Exactly, which I'm a huge fan of Write and Improve. We had very limited time with our students, as I mentioned. So obviously we did want to help improve their writing. There was very little class time to do so. And I think Write and Improve was a really nice way for our students to take more control of their learning, of their writing in particular. We did look at writing as well, but as I'm sure many of you are aware, Write and Improve does do some things wonderfully and very quickly. So I think it really helped, and I definitely saw a development, an improvement from at the beginning of the course to the end of the course in our girls' writing skills in particular. But I think also it was very different to the sort of education system that they were used to, which is very much 8 or 9 hours a day. Here is what you need to learn. It will be reproduced, or it will be reformulated, shall we say, at the end of the year in an exam. This was a much more flipped classroom approach, hopefully preparing them for further education and work. We left a lot of responsibility in our students' hands, which sometimes can be risky, but I think it all turned out very well.
And moving on to the motivation factor that we mentioned earlier. So we had a series of webinars, again, especially for these students, where we focused on themes such as resilience, well-being, leadership. These were all themes that were identified as being important to the students. So again, through the surveys, through the regular contact we had with them, we were able to cater these webinars according to things that they felt interested in. And again, with really, really lovely feedback from the students from these sessions. And that takes us, George, to our final section of LinguaSkill.
Yes, well, at the end of the course, I mean, I think you've probably all gathered from what we've said so far, and we only had 6 months. The aim of this course was never to sort of move up a CFR level. The focus wasn't on, you know, the sort of nitty gritty of our students' language. It was much more than that. But at the end of the course, all of our students sat LinguaSkill. They got their results pretty rapidly. LinguaSkill is recognized by Spanish universities. It was 100% online. All of our students took it from home. And more information can be found on LinguaSkill on our website. But it was a nice sort of cherry on the cake at the end. As I said, it wasn't the focus, and we were managing, you know, a pretty large group of teachers, and we made it clear from the beginning that we do not want this to become, you know, an exam prep course, and I don't think under any circumstances it ever did become that. So it was a nice something for our students to take away, but it wasn't the main focus of the course itself. I'd just like to say, before we move on, any questions, could you send them to the Q&A, please, because we will have some time afterwards to speak to to put some questions to our fellow presenters.
We will. And as we said throughout the course, really, really critical was making sure that we were listening to the students throughout. And the lovely thing was that the feedback that we had at the end of the course was very reassuring for us, with lots of wonderful comments from the students, which you can see here now on screen. So that, in a nutshell, was the Cambridge Ignite programme. And now we have the very exciting opportunity. I'm going to start my video and hope that I don't disappear just for a second, because we are now going to welcome 5 of our students from Cambridge Ignite, and I'm so excited to do this. And I know they're all feeling a little bit nervous, which is completely normal. You've got a wonderful audience in that chat box, ladies. I've already seen lots of the comments. So without any further ado, we are going to introduce Abril. Abril is a 12th grade student from Barcelona's metropolitan area. You can usually find Abril with her nose in a book and blasting pop rock music through her headphones. She also collaborates with non-profits, especially in the field of access to educational opportunities. And in the future, she wants to study politics and economics and work alongside worldwide young leaders for the future.
We also have Andrea. Andrea is 17 and she's from Cáceres in Extremadura. She's currently studying for her science bachillerato and would like to continue her studies abroad, although, very understandably, she doesn't still have a clear idea of what exactly to choose as a degree. I didn't when I was 17. She loves playing sports, going to the gym, learning languages and reading, but what makes her happiest is traveling, something else that I share with her.
And next up is Leyre. Leyre is from Mérida in Extremadura. She is in her second year of bachillerato, and in the future, she wants to study something related to biological sciences. She's very keen on swimming and also, of course, in languages. She speaks, of course, Spanish, English, and a little bit of German and French.
Next, we have Maria. She lives in Seville, in the south of Spain. She loves animals. In fact, she has a cat who sort of became our unofficial 6th or 7th member of the class, named Leyre, who apparently knows how to high five. She really enjoys playing computer games with her friends and is hoping to study medicine.
And last, but in no means least, we have Nora, who's 17 from Asturias in the north of Spain, who, just like me and George, loves traveling. And she loves baking in her free time and reading. And we also know that Nora is a very keen surfer, probably more in the summer, I guess. So with great excitement, and I want to see a big smile from you girls as you start, because this is going to be a fantastic presentation. We know it. It's over to you, ladies.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maria, and as we were just introduced, I'm here today with a wonderful group of young ladies to talk to you. Excuse me, I am nervous. To talk to you about some details and attitudes that we love to see in our teachers. As it's been commented a few times now, we're all students, and as Rachel did say, we're only in our last year of high school, so we're also all very invested in our education, and therefore we thought that we could bring some interesting insights to today's conference. Therefore, while we did do some research that will be presented to you by Andrea, we decided to give our personal experiences the spotlight. Leyre, Abril, and Nora will be kind enough to share their stories with you. Lastly, I will conclude the presentation with a summary of the key ideas that have been discussed, and that would be it for the day. Since I know how hardworking, intelligent, and inspiring these girls are, I suggest you settle in and pay attention because this is going to be a great presentation.
So, hi, I am Andrea, and today I'd like to share with you two different systems of education that have ultimately been implemented, but they aim to make a change in the learning process. We have opted for these two in particular because we have previously worked on them as part of one of the projects of our Cambridge Ignite course, and we consider that they are revolutionary and promising. The first one I'm going to talk about is the flipped classroom, which is a pedagogical model that consists of transferring certain paths of the learning process outside of the classroom in order to use the time in class to develop and facilitate other more practical and technical aspects. This is approached by giving students the information and ideas before class so that they can assimilate knowledge and work by themselves. And then in class, they take part in practical activities to better understand the contents. And the teacher acts as a place to ask for help or support. If you're wondering whether it is advantageous or not, let me guide you through the multiple benefits that back up this method, among which time management, self-sufficiency, originality, and boost of curiosity stand out. So this one may sound familiar to you, but the one I will mention next might be new, for some of you, because it has just been developed in certain schools in the United States. I am referring to High Tech High, which is an equity project that works to address inequities and help students reach their full potential. As far as its characteristics and principles are concerned, the High Tech High project is composed by students from different backgrounds working together. And these kind of school projects integrate hands and minds, and they incorporate inquiry across multiple disciplines, which leads to the creation of meaningful and beautiful work. Besides, it is worth mentioning that they are guided by 4 connected design principles, which are equity, personalization, authentic work, and collaborative design. And they set aspirational goals and create a foundation for understanding the approach. They get this by connecting their studies to the world through fieldwork, community service, internships, and consultation with outside experts. Regarding the teacher's role, it focuses on collaborating to design curriculum and projects, which lead to professional development, as well as on participating in hiring and seeking student experience and voice in each of these areas. Can you please pass to the following slide? Thank you. So these two pictures show what the campuses look like so that you can have an idea of how different they are from the conventional campuses that we are used to. And now my partners, Abril, Nora, and Leyre, will talk about their personal experiences. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. So I'll start with mine. I have grown up around teachers. My father's a teacher. My mom was for some time. Most of their friends are teachers. And additionally, I go to a very small school, which means that I've had most of my teachers for a very long time. And that's made me really get to know them and also their teaching styles. When it comes to English, I have had 4 teachers, if we count one I've had outside of school. And despite having very different teaching styles, it's always been one of my favorite subjects because I've had great teachers. I would say that one of the biggest things they had in common that I really liked was that they really enjoyed themselves in our classes, which made it so that we could connect with them, and it would make us excited to go to class, which was great. Something else that really was the thing in common was that they would talk to us about their own experiences learning languages, which made it more relatable to us, and we could see that they had struggled too to go through what we were going through, and that made it easier for us to be more brave at class and speak up more. I also know, because I've spoken with them, that one of the biggest problems that they have, especially in the last few years as teenagers, is keeping my class engaged. So some things that have worked for them and for my class have been healthy competition, because my class really likes to compete, and there are a lot of media nowadays that can work towards that. However, there are, if you take it to the extreme, competition can not always be so good, and some people might feel less than other students. So especially if there's a lot of difference between students, that can be a problem. But to a point, it's a great thing. Then also creative challenges, especially in speaking tasks. My class really thrives when we have the opportunity to make someone laugh or make someone sad, or I don't know, just bring emotion out of someone, which is always great. And then finally, the one that has really worked the most for us, especially in participation in class, would be to keep topics current and topics that we're familiar with and that we like. Because if someone already struggles with speaking up about something and they have to do it in a whole new language, it's a lot more difficult. So if we were talking about topics that people already knew about and already had an opinion about, it was easier for them to use a whole new language on it. Usually the ones that mostly work for us would be social media and current news that were important for students or young people. And now Leyre will go on with her experience.
Thank you, Abril. Well, I would like to talk about one of the teachers I've learned most with. She was my biology teacher last year, and there are many reasons of why I appreciated her so much. First of all, she loved biology and she loved teaching, and you could see that in all of her classes. She will always talk about every topic very passionately, and she will always show how enthusiastic she was to teach us. So such was her enthusiasm and her passion that we were all willing to listen to her and to try to understand what she was explaining and to make an effort for her classes. Well, as I've said, she was determined to make us learn, so she will always explain everything as many times as we needed and in many ways as possible until she was sure everyone had understood everything. She will always try to look for different and creative activities for us, such as videos, or once we even made some crafts when learning about the DNA structure. But this wasn't the only reason why she kept us so engaged in her subject. She managed to make us everything she was explaining interesting for us, and she achieved this by showing us the relation of what we were studying with current situations or things about our daily life that affect us directly. So talking about these kind of things is definitely something that catches our attention in every subject, because we all have an opinion or we all have doubts. So the classes will turn out to be really interactive and really interesting, as many different topics will come up. I've always liked this subject, but it has been always mainly based on memorizing. However, knowing how the theory was applied and having learned these things by different activities, not the usual way, is definitely something that made me remember them better. And besides, our teacher will always tell us some anecdotes or examples that when I see something that remembers me of that, I instantly associate them with our classes. For instance, when we were learning about biochemistry, for example, and she will mention how some of the things she explained were used in the beauty industry. When I see some of those products, I instantly remember those biochemistry classes and what she was trying to explain us in that moment. Well, to conclude, this teacher made us realize how what we are learning at the school is useful, and she transmitted us that enthusiasm to learn and to be willing to investigate and to be curious about what we learn in class. And I think that was the key to such good results in her classes. And now, finally, Nora will share one last experience with you.
Thank you, Leyre. Lastly, I'd like to talk about my current English teacher. Until I met her, I used to dread English lessons. It was the subject I hated on the whole school. And the reason why I hated it was because the only thing we did was watch the PowerPoint and do the same exercises over and over again. I found the lessons dull, boring, and my classmates also thought the same way I did. We didn't find it a challenging lesson, so there was zero participation. But luckily, on the 10th grade, we changed teachers, and the English period became one of those lessons we were looking forward to attending, which was kind of crazy because the only lessons we used to look forward to were, I know, physical education, arts and crafts. It was like a really big change. This made us realize that we didn't hate English, we didn't hate the lesson, we didn't even hate the teacher, we just hated the way it was taught to us. When we changed teachers, instead of spending 55 minutes staring at the PowerPoint and doing boring exercises, now we play games, we speak to each other, and we can watch clips from different TV shows in their original versions. And we even got hooked up to some of really interesting shows that we would have never thought of watching in the original version if we hadn't get to know them at school. Her teaching was highly interactive. We all participated, and there was a really big impact because people who had failed not her subject, but the English subject for all the years, they started passing the exams. We really improved our listenings because of the shows and the clips I already mentioned we watched. And what she really put an emphasis on was the speaking part. If you could please change the slide, Abril. Thank you. She really believed that the speaking was the key to traveling and the key to communicating with, obviously, with other people when you travel. And she didn't imply that things such as grammar or vocabulary weren't important. No, they were still important, but the amount of vocabulary, and how difficult grammar structures you can make is not going to help you if you need to, I don't know, ask for directions or when you meet someone that doesn't speak the same language you do. So there were lessons where we spent 55 minutes only speaking to each other. And as Abril already mentioned, the subjects she always chose were current events or, I don't know, something that we had all something to say about, that we could all participate. And we spent all those 55 minutes speaking to each other. And the only rule is that everyone had to interact. Everyone had to bring something to the conversation. And I think that's something crucial about her lessons, the way that they made us feel included, the way that she forced us to participate. Because, for example, I had no problem participating. I liked it, but I had other classmates that were shy or they just don't feel like doing it. And in other lessons, they don't think about them. They just leave them be. If they don't want to participate, no one is going to push them. No one is going to try to make them feel included. And this teacher really managed to do this. And that's what I'm most grateful for, because she made us feel part of something. And also there was a really good balance between the learning and the playing. Every Friday, like only Fridays, because they were like the fun day, we played games, and they were, well, as her teaching was highly interactive, they were games like Kahoot, Black Stories, Heads Up, Taboo, and there were even sometimes small prizes such as candy or stickers that they were necessary. We like participating anyhow, but it really helps. Like, we're usually bumped out from other lessons, so glucose really helps boost our energy. So yeah, that's basically the English teacher I currently have, and when I leave high school, I'm going to remember her and miss her a lot. And lastly, my friend Maria is going to give you a brief summary of the concepts we as a whole value the most.
Thanks, Nora. Well, if I really go into the next slide, one could say that these things that we said we value and we like to see in teachers can be classified into The first details that we appreciate make classes more interactive and are related to that, to interaction. And the others are more related to making us as students feel rewarded. When these two things are put together, that is when we feel what we feel results in a long-lasting foundation of knowledge that is actually the ultimate goal of school, right? To actually learn. Well, when it comes to interaction, it's crucial because first off, it helps us remember things better, more easily. Leyre commented on this, how to this day she will see beauty products that her teacher talked to them about, and she will remember the classes. And secondly, and also very importantly, interaction in class and having classes be engaging helps avoid conflict. When conflict happens in class, it's normally because people get bored and start talking. So if, on the other hand, we're listening, paying attention, and taking part in class, those things are avoided. There are multiple, well, the first thing that was present in all three stories about interaction was about vocation and passion. Teaching is an incredibly vocational career. I figure if you're here today, you know that, and you're passionate and willing to, put effort in and learn and improve for your students. And I'd like to thank you for that in the first place. And the other big aspect, the one little piece of advice that I can give you is to share your own experiences. It doesn't have to be personal experiences, but if you talk to us about, for example, something that was hard to learn for you, or something that you did in order to learn a certain part of the subject that you're teaching us right now, that helps us a lot to see you as more of a human figure and less of an authority figure, which is ideal, I feel like, or at least it's been my relationship with my teachers, and it's what I feel should be a relationship between a teacher and a student. And then interaction can be achieved through, practical activities that enable us to apply and assimilate that knowledge that you've taught us. It can be done through many things, games, speaking, collaborative tasks. I really brought up healthy competition, which can be an extremely powerful tool if used correctly. We spoke about creative challenges. And most importantly, when it comes to speaking, right? We were speaking about English in 2 out of our 3 personal experiences. Familiar subjects were commented deeply in both, and it's true, it's so much easier for us to talk about things we already have opinions on and we already know a lot of vocabulary about, than to just out of the blue start talking about, I don't know, the North Pole and whatever. And then moving on to rewards, which is the other important part. They can be physical, such as candy or stickers that Nora mentioned. And while we do appreciate some sweets from time to time, they're really not necessary, and they're not really what is really important. What is really important, and is where I want to get to, is to the emotional rewards. As students, we put so much time into school, most of our time, probably. So, well, I'm sure you teachers do too, but we're still younger, so we still have a lot of things that we want to do outside of school, and it sometimes gets boring, but we know that it's what we've got to do, so we put the time in. So to feel emotionally rewarded for it, it's just great, right? It's ideal. To feel like you guys as teachers, who are at the end of the day the people in charge of evaluating the work that we put in, to feel like you guys are proud of us, that's one of the best feelings ever. To feel like you believe in us, to feel like you believe in our future, that you even expect us to have good results, to live up to your expectations, that's an excellent motivation. If you manage to become somebody we look up to, which sounds challenging, but it's really not. In my case, I look up to the absolute majority of my teachers. I think they're such amazing people. For me, not wanting to disappoint them, because they would obviously expect great things of me, has been an excellent motivation throughout my entire years of studying. And I think it would be for anybody. So that is everything we wanted to share with you today. I really hope that we've said some interesting stuff, or that at least it will be helpful to you and you will be able to use it to your advantage as well as your students. So thank you so much for listening, and we hope you have a great day.
Congratulations. Fantastic job, ladies. We have a very, very short amount of time for questions, but if you have a look at the chat, you can have a look at the chat box now. We advised, didn't we, George, that they don't look at the chat box while they're presenting, but you can see lots of lovely comments now if you have a look.
Wonderful feedback and excellent job, girls. And a few people did say it's so lovely to actually hear from students. There are 3 or 4 of these sort of big conferences a year, and it's lots of teacher trainers talking about how important teaching is, but it's lovely to have the opportunity to hear from some students. We've time for a couple of questions, I think.
Yeah.
So first one I'm going to put to Abril because it's alphabetically fair. What was the most different about this course compared to your previous learning experiences?
I would say that it was more interactive than I'm used to at class. We've mentioned interaction a lot in our presentation, but that is completely true. And also the whole part about doing presentations so often, so constantly, and doing projects so often was not something I was used to in any subject, but especially not English.
Thank you. Anything to add to that? Andrea?
I would say that being given the chance to work with girls who were as interested and as keen on as I was something crucial, because I think that it was a great opportunity to learn from others, and I should say that I learned a lot from them, and they inspired me a lot. So that would be one of the most remarkable things about the experience.
Okay, thank you. Rachel?
I think that leads us to another question that came up, I think, George, about the online experience. Leyre, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, about how you felt before the course started, knowing it was all going to be completely online, and then maybe if you felt surprised or how it all went for you, in your opinion.
Well, I think it totally surprised me. At first, I thought that online courses weren't going to be as effective as when you are when you talk face to face. But I think this has been one of the courses I've learned most with, and it has been online. And although it may seem that online you don't get really to know the person and it doesn't seem so personal, I think that I really connected with all of my partners, and it was just and we haven't only seen I have only seen them via screen, but I think that it has only been a challenge, but I think it hasn't been a problem at all.
Lovely. Maria, anything to add? Did you find it difficult working completely online?
Well, I didn't find it difficult at all. I really like video games, so a lot of the time I spend online with my friends. So, a screen is not really a barrier for me. And even though I do feel like there are a lot of things about a course, especially following up on what Abril said about so many presentations that we miss because we do online and not in person. There are a lot of other tools, especially technological tools, that I've picked up from you guys and from these girls when it comes to making presentations or just using technology and Zoom overall. That's another part of it, right?
Okay, lovely. And the last one for Nora. What is your number one top tip for students beginning bachillerato, beginning their last 2 years of school?
This relates as well, Nora, to a question. It's just come in the Q&A box now as well, from Julina, who's asking about what advice you'd give to students who think that English isn't important as well. So maybe those two things.
First of all, the advice I would give to anyone is don't pressure yourself. Try to have a great time going to school. Try to love the process of learning new things. And related to English, the immense possibilities, the amount of people you can meet, the amount of stuff you can learn from listening to other people. You're not going to be able to communicate to everyone in your own language. and a lot of people speak English nowadays. Are you going to really, I don't know, miss all of that information, meeting all that great people just because the language barrier? I don't know. That's what I love. I love the language because it allows me to meet a lot of people.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you all again, girls. Thank you for agreeing to do this in front of 350 teachers around the world. It took a lot of courage and you all did a wonderful job. So thank you all. Thank you all in the chat box. Thank you, teachers, for coming. And that's it. Anything to finish, Rachel?
No, it's probably best that I don't speak a lot now because you will know that
tears,
I will just get emotional. But because you have been absolutely wonderful, ladies. And I think what you've done today, as George said, took a whole load of courage. But I think, I mean, amazing signs of such promising futures in whatever it is that you decide to go on and do. So personally, I just want to say thank you for the last 6 months because it's been an absolute joy and I have learned an immense amount of things from you as well. And I'll stop there because I will get emotional.
And I'll echo what Rachel said. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming.